Welcome to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware.
Hello, I am Lisa Garr, and welcome to the Aware Show Health Series. And we're also really talking about mindset. We talk with experts about what our life is going to look like in the new normal, how we're going to embrace change, adapt to change, become resilient, look for the little gems in what we're experiencing, and how we're going to deal with the pain. And so that is what we're talking about on the Aware Show Health Series. And we also are talking a lot about leadership. Leadership in your life, over your mind, over your body, over your community, and in your relationships. And that is so important to understand that we are still leaders in our lives. Yes, we have to follow the rules, and yes, we have to follow the news, but it is so vitally important to remember that we are still leaders in our lives. And the way that you know that is when you put your specific attention on choosing your thoughts. That is something that you can control. You can control where your thoughts go. Now, you know the difference when your thoughts take over or when you are in charge of those thoughts. And we deal with that when we are taken over by emotional eating, and we have different emotions that take us over to get us out of control. And we also understand maybe when you work out and those great neurochemicals that come out of your body and mind, and it starts to take charge of your body. That is the difference. We have choices in every moment. And we are today talking about the conscious choices. And this also has to do with stress. How do you manage the stressful thoughts? How do you manage stress in a time of unprecedented crisis, information overload? So we're going to talk today about how to control those thoughts and make conscious choices with a dear, dear friend of mine, Dr. Fab Mancini, who is also known as America's #1 healthy living media expert. He is a world-renowned doctor, Hay House's international best-selling author of The Power of Self-Healing. He's also the president emeritus of Parker University. He's been featured on multiple media in terms of the doctors, Dr. Phil, CNN, ABC, everywhere, Univision. And he's also a graduate of the prestigious Institute for Educational Management in the Graduate School of Education at Harvard University. So welcome. Thank you so much for being with me, our wonderful Dr. Fab.
Lisa, it's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. And I always look forward to our conversations because not only they're always inspiring, but they always seem to be very transformational.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're doing today. We are in a state of information overload. This entire show is meant to give people a moment, a breath, a transformational experience, something where they really, truly can feel. So when I was talking about choosing your thoughts and choosing your emotions in this time of stress, and we're going to eventually talk about emotional eating because that's a big key as well. What do we need to know during this particular time in choosing our thoughts during crisis?
You know, this is a very unprecedented time, but one of the beautiful things about this moment is that we know that we're not the only ones struggling with it. For the first time in history, we have one circumstance, one issue that has impacted the whole world. So no one is being exempt from this particular crisis or pandemic. We know that every gender, every race, every country has been impacted. So when I think about the mindset, I always think about something I learned from Albert Einstein, in which he said, you can't solve the problem of today with the same level of thinking that created them. So when I think about that, it always reminds me that in order for me to change my circumstances from where I am today and where I would like to be tomorrow, I have to start with my thinking. So the way that I do it personally is that I just pause, because a lot of times when you're dealing with something, no matter what challenge you're dealing with, whether it's your health, a financial crisis, a relationship breakup, all the things that we're experiencing right now, you need to pause, because in pausing, you get an opportunity to just take a breath, because breathing allows you to just calm down and just recognize, okay, let me take a moment here. And then now you begin to change that thinking. So what I do typically is I take the circumstance for what it is, right? We're hearing a lot of opinions right now, but we know that we get an idea of what we're dealing with. But then I go fully into 95% of my time working on solutions, the things that I can control. Because, circumstances like this never defined us, but what's going to define us is our responses. So how are you going to respond to this? And then I start thinking about how can I go into activity in that 95% solution-driven mindset, and that's where I tend to find success at the end of it.
So you have a wonderful 5-step process on some of the best responses to crisis. And I love this. And it's a wonderful recipe to kind of default to when you are feeling or experiencing the crisis fear mode. And I love it. I'd love it if you could go through this with us. It's really great.
And the responses, we know that we all have the ability to respond. And that's really something that you must recognize. You do have the ability to respond. Some people use the word responsibility to describe that. So the first thing that I do on a 5-step process is make sure that I stay in the present moment. Right now we know that most of our fears, worries, anxieties, they come from either thinking too much about what happened yesterday or last week or a month ago when we all got notified, or thinking too much about what may happen next week or in the future. And as you know, our dear friend Eckhart Tolle wrote the book, The Power of Now, and he gave many examples of how in the present is when you typically find solutions. So being in the present just means focus on what you have right now. Know what happened yesterday or what may happen tomorrow, but what is going on right now? How are you utilizing your time right now? Are you appreciating those around you? Are you able to take care of yourself? Self-care is one of the biggest messages right now. Are you able to make sure that you're investing in yourself right now? Are you make sure that you are creating a plan, rewriting your goals? This is a time to be present with what is going on. The second thing is there's 2 types of people out there during crisis. And the first one is the survival people. Those are about 80 to 90% of the people. You're going to start thinking every single day about what do I need for me? How is this going to impact me? But in crisis like this, we notice that the people that truly thrive are the ones that are thinking about the needs of others. What can you do for those around you? As a parent, what can you do for your children during a time like this? As a husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, what can you do for your partner? What can you do for your employees as a leader of your company? So focus on the service that you can provide rather than just worrying so much about the survival actions that you have to take. When you start thinking service, you will recognize that it will give you an unlimited amount of energy. It's uplifting, but your creative mode goes skyrocketed where you come up with amazing solutions that you never thought you were capable of. The third thing that I find that is very important is you need to be able to be in this moment, but love this moment and be able to focus and be fully engaged with who you are right now. This is a time to reflect. This is a time to get to know you. This is a time to rethink about your business model in your business. As you know, many people have had to go virtual when they have bricks and mortars. Other industries have been completely shut down and they're trying to figure out how to get out of it. So this is a time to really reconnect with yourself. Over 80% of the people, according to statistics, don't like what they do. This is a time to reflect. Do you really want to go back to that work that you were miserable in? Or is this a time to really launch your new business? Is this a time to really get yourself out there in a way that is authentic? And then the next one is you have to focus. Go ahead.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, because I think that the way that work is going to look is there are going to be a lot more people that really like this working from home thing, because it does allow you to connect more with family. I love that you're at home now with your two, 20-year-old boys. One's working in one room, the other one's in school in another room, and you're on TV in the other room. That's great. I mean, this is a beautiful thing. And then you cook together and make these amazing meals at night. I mean, that's a great image. There are those, though, that also really needed the structure. I have a friend who really liked the work environment in the office and the connection and so forth. So there's going to be a new balance. I really do like what's kind of opened up here. So thank you. I'm sorry, living in the moment. And I love that, serve more than survive. That is beautiful. So the third one you were mentioning.
The third one is reconnecting with yourself, rethinking your business, rethinking your life, making sure that in this world you are where you want to be. And if you're not, it's okay. Just embrace it and do something different about it. I was talking yesterday with my dear friend Nick Vujicic, and Nick, has about 55 events a year. His sole income comes from live events, as you know, and his events are stadiums events rather than small groups. And he's completely revamped his life to be virtual. And he said to me, Fab, the biggest blessing, he's got 4 children. He just had twins. And he says, is to be with my family. I realize how much I miss them when I'm on the road, and I can't wait to revamp my business. The fourth thing that I want you to think about is your health. Now, Lisa, I've never seen a time in which people's health have been a top priority of their lives. Now, granted, most people right now are thinking, is my body healthy enough to handle this virus? And the answer is yes. Your body is designed with self-healing mechanisms to help support you through this. And we know that through history that the body has the ability to heal, but you also have to be healthy in order to do that. So you have to be thinking right now a lot about your immune system, more importantly, your nervous system, of course, is your stress levels. How do you manage all of that in your life? Most people don't realize. I'm going to give you 3 things that you probably would never have heard before. Shiitake mushrooms. Eat a lot of shiitake mushrooms because they are amazing in helping your immune health, but also in decreasing the inflammation. I read another research that was saying that humming, just simply humming, allows you to boost the oxygen levels and also your lymphatic system. And then making sure, like I've been cooking a lot, as you know, put cumin, because cumin is something that prevents infection. So 3 simple ideas there in order to implement into your life, but to recognize that put health as a priority right now more than ever, invest in your health, and you will come out of this better than you came into it.
You are so right about that. I think that for the first time ever, our entire world is focused on their immune system. Yes, it's been in the back of our minds, but you as a health expert, it's always on the front of your mind. And just to take it one step further, the book that you wrote about the power of self-healing is very relevant right now as well, because there's a lot of people that don't want to go into doctors' offices for regular checkups, that they can't, and they don't want to be exposed to waiting rooms. So this has really got to be our top priority. And there's a lot in your book, of course, about self-care and food and immune system and so forth that is very helpful during this time. I really thank you for that perspective. It is the first time ever where our health is our very top priority, and safety, of course. But that's a big one. Thank you for that.
So I want to make sure that you embrace that. I want to make sure that you recognize that health should always be your top priority, because it impacts every area of your life, not only whether you live or die, but also the quality of your life, which is very important. And lastly, the 5th step that I do is primarily to recognize that during this time, I need to be a little bit more loving, unconditionally loving to myself and others, and be able to spend the time to forgive myself for the mistakes that maybe I made in the past. Begin with a blank sheet of paper, like I train my patients, is that every single day should be looked at as a brand new day. You can't do anything for what happened yesterday, but I know that we can all be a little bit more loving with each other. Spend some more time visualizing yourself, being more loving to yourself, being more patient to yourself, being good to yourself. Right now we have a lot of providers that are very concerned about how they're going to provide for their families. And I'm telling them, give yourself permission to say, I'm worried, to say, I don't know what's going to happen next week, to say, honey, we may have to make some changes. Children, we may have to make some changes. I just want you to know, don't be afraid to hold back, because holding back stress changes the chemistry of our bodies and it doesn't allow our organs to function. And it's one of the main reasons why people get sick. It's because they internalize that stress, which changes the chemistry and changes the body. I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions that I want you to consider. I want you to go from worry right now into certainty. Even if you have to fake it until you make it, I want you to stop the worry. Anytime you have a worry, change it into a certain statement. Louise Hay taught us for many years to change negative statements into what she called affirmations. So make sure that you right now feel the most certain than ever, and then release the worry. Just don't give it any energy. Also make sure that you go from judgment to acceptance, because right now we want to judge, right? We want to find somebody to blame. Who can we blame for this? The reality of it is the world needed a pause. This is a great pause that we all needed. We needed to reset ourselves because we were going in a direction that was very detrimental, that was very sickening, that was impacting the health of millions of people. And now we're seeing that that's going to help. So make sure that you accept this moment for what it is and make it a positive moment. And also go from isolation into love. I can tell you that love is the greatest healer there is. I want you to love yourself more than ever right now. I want you to love those around you more than ever. Think of it like you will never see them again. What would you say to them? How would you treat them? How would you treat yourself if you know that this was your last day? So make sure that you are as much loving as you can be, and make sure that you recognize that this moment is given to you. It's the greatest opportunity of your life if you choose to look at it that way. So by changing that thinking, by looking at this as an opportunity, not what the coronavirus did to me, but what did it do for me? And not what am I going to do during this process of isolation, but who am I going to be during this process of isolation? Who am I going to be as I come out of this process? Because that's what you can control.
It's interesting, as you say, we needed a pause, and you can really see that with our environment. The way that the environment has responded to this pause has been incredible, with cleaner air and more wildlife being present. And we have seen so many of those images that humans are not pushing away animals right now. We're living in harmony with animals, and it's beautiful. We don't need to just put them in cages and zoos. It's really been amazing. And in terms of what you're saying, I have a question about how to go from that place of worry to certainty. How do you make that jump? Can you actually take us through a process where we can actually transform?
So what I've noticed is that worry is an emotion that focuses on the past. You start looking at the past, and it kind of brings your conscious mind and your subconscious mind into past experiences. So whenever you worry, you're already dwelling on maybe something that happened in the past that was negative in nature. So the way you go into certainty is that you get to write the end of that story. You get to write what's going to happen. You get to decide how are you going to end up at the end of this, who you want to be at the end of this. So it's as simple as this. You identify a worry. I'm worried that I'm going to be unable to support my family financially at the end of this, right? That's a very simple worry. We notice that many people have been impacted financially. We notice that we have over 20 million people unemployed right now. We noticed that the PPP ran out of money very quickly, that the government gave us an incentive. So we know that there's a reality there. I'm not saying that it's not. But what I want you to consider is this. If all of a sudden you take that worry of not being able to provide financially for my family and you rewrite that chapter, you rewrite that end of the story and say, during this time, I'm going to be the most financially able that I've ever been in my life. Once you create that certainty of that, now you begin to start feeling a little bit different about who you're being during this process. And what we know through the law of attraction, as you know, is that our feelings is what attracts everything into our life. If you're feeling worried, what does that do? That's going to increase your cortisol levels, which is going to not be very detrimental for your body. That's going to create chemistries in your systems that are going to be very detrimental to your organs. But when you have certainty instead, where you write the end of that story, all of a sudden now you're going to be more creative. You're going to start feeling healthier. And now you're going to be able to say to yourself, you know what? What can I do right now to be able to be financially able? You know, I was talking to a dear friend of mine that had to change his whole business. At thousands of meetings that they do every single week had to go virtual in a matter of a week. And he did it primarily because he recognized that he had too many people depending on those meetings to succeed. And he recognized that he either could be a victim and say, oh my gosh, my business of so many years, it will go down the drain. Or he had to recognize that, you know what, we can leverage technology at a time like this where more people maybe can even grow his business, where more people are going to be able to participate rather than the opposite. And you do that by making the decision. You know, Bob Proctor taught us one of my greatest lessons he taught me many years ago. He said, after 65 years of teaching personal development, there was one thing that kept people from succeeding. And Lisa, guess what that is? Uncertainty. Undecisiveness. You have to be decisive at a time like this more than ever. So how do you do that? By making small decisions, but be decisive. Don't stay in this indecisive mode of uncertainty. Be decisive. Control what you can control and accept what you can control, but do it with faith rather than fear. The biggest challenge right now is that so many people have gone into fear rather than faith, and that's limiting their ability to respond.
That is the energy that comes through when you watch the news, is fear energy. And so I've noticed this is such a very, it's a tiny distinction here of that moment when, yes, you sit and you look on the couch, you sit on the couch and you look at the news and you wait for the money to open up and you look at your bank account and it's not there and the check's not coming in from the unemployment and you can just get stuck. Or you're on the other side of that, where you are pivoting, you're working your tail off, you have no time to connect with your family, and it's actually more work than you've ever experienced in your life. So there's a choice point there. There's a decision to pivot. And it happens in just a moment. It happens in just a moment. Everything starts with a decision, Tony Robbins says. So my question is, how do you make that one little choice point moment to pivot? What precedes that moment of pivoting? Yeah, the information's out there and you know what you want to do and you want to take action or you want to connect more with your family. But how do we, that little moment there, it's so golden. It's very precious. How do you seize that moment and control that moment?
You know, there's a couple of things that I do. The first thing that I recommend everybody do, that has been a habit of mine for many years, is as soon as you wake up in the morning, make your bed. That's a decision. You start with an activity right away. You know, go ahead and shower and shave and groom. You know, right now I see so many postings of people that have let themselves go because just because they're in isolation doesn't mean that you have to not take care of yourself. So you start making little decisions like that. You're going to shower. You're going to take care of yourself. You're going to write an agenda for the day. Granted, maybe you don't have a whole bunch of appointments to do, but you're going to create an agenda every single day. That's how you are decisive. You decide how you're going to control that next day. and you're going to review it that morning. So that way you can be in activity that is constructive, the things that really matter for you. Who are you going to call today? What are you going to do? Whether it's personal, professional, do something that you know that you are in control of your decisions right now. Because if you don't control your agenda, guess what happens? Your agenda becomes other people's agenda.
It completely takes over and controls you, yes, and everybody else's agenda takes over as well. That's a very good point. Yes.
So in that moment space that you asked me, there's one simple thing that I've done for years, Lisa, that I think is the answer that I can best give you right now. And that is I think about a mission or something greater than myself rather than myself. You see, what I've learned is that many of us are not willing to do what it takes to get uncomfortable for ourselves. But when we have somebody else to do it for, like our children, our spouse, our mother, our father, our community, our business, our world, our nation, all of a sudden we're willing to step out, and that adrenaline kicks in and gets you out of your funk and makes you realize, yes, I can do this. Because that's the decision you need to make. The decision you need to make is, I'm not going to be paralyzed by these circumstances. I am in control of what I can control. And that's a lot, especially your thinking. Because the average person has, what do they say, over 80% of negative thoughts a day. Well, guess what? That's mostly in your subconscious mind. Some of it is in your conscious mind. But imagine if all of a sudden you get control of those thoughts and you make every thought a positive thought, a constructive thought, then that will get you to where you want to go rather than to stay where you are and then feel depressed and anxious, etc. I find that the people that are living in anxiety today is because of lack of activity. If you want to get out of anxiety, go into activity, go into action, because you can't exist on both at the same time. When you're doing something that is constructive, you can't be anxious because all your energy goes towards the activity. It's like they say, if you want to cure depression, go help somebody that's more depressed than you, because you can't be in depression while you're helping somebody get out of depression. And it's just simple. Just go into that activity.
That is so true. When you are helping someone else, you're actually helping yourself too. Thank you again. I love seeing you. And until next time, I invite everyone to stay aware.